Let's try to create some pad sounds. I think it's maybe the best sounds you can create with Deepmind. This one is probably my favorite. And basic difference between the pad sounds and the bass sounds, there are polyphonic, of course. Here we have a unison 2 mode, which is 2 oscillators per voice. I think they are slightly detuned. And maybe pan spreaded as well, yeah, but just a little. And what I did here is there's actually only one oscillator here with levels put to 0 on the second oscillator, but on the modulation matrix I added envelope 2 as a source of oscillator 2 level, which is what it means basically is that there are different envelopes for oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. The oscillator 1 envelope is just a VCA, and the oscillator 2 opens with the filter. Filter here is, yeah, there is some envelope here. And thanks to this, we got a little bit more movement in the sound. You can hear that both of those oscillators there are actually, the second oscillator is 1 octave lower than the first one. So that sub-octave is appearing in different time than the main oscillator. Also, the VCA curve and the attack curve of the VCA is like this. To make both of those oscillators attack curves a little bit more different, to add another source of movement. The last thing is the LFO1 is modulating really just a really slow swoop of the oscillator 2 fine to add a little bit more detuning, but just with that second oscillator, which moves slightly out of time with the first oscillator. And that's basically it. All you have to do to create pads here is add much more attack than we do with the basses, both to the VCA and the filter. And same goes to the release. This is without the release. And with some release. Which will hold the note just for a while after we release the key. And the last thing here is effects, which is delay in chorus and reverb, but I will turn that off for now, and you can hear that it's not really a core of that sound. So you can put it in the fashion you like. Another example is simple soul pad, and this time much more monumental with the added octave, without all that fancy stuff like second envelope controlling level of the second oscillator. They just move together. They are slightly detuned because we are again in the unison 2 mode. There are some reverb, but doesn't really matter. So what we got in here is 2 octaves so, and the filter, which is closed almost all the way down with just a little envelope, and just a little, oh, maybe not little, decay. That's basically it. Nothing really funky here. No pitch, pulse width modulation. There is just slight pitch, but it's just to, add little movement. It's not really important. I can turn that off actually. No tone mode, no pitch, nothing. All right, another example. We'll use both shapes here with just a little bit of pulse width modulation, but as you will hear in a moment, it doesn't really matter here. There is a sub oscillator here as well, and the pitch is set to the same. Actually, it's just a little bit below the main oscillator to add a little bit more drift or detuning between the oscillators. No mods here. So the pulse width doesn't really matter here. You can add it to taste, but it's not really pronounced. And what is different besides those second main oscillator here, second shape, is much more audible filter sweep. The envelope is set like this, like in the middle, but the filter sustain is here in the middle, and the decay is kind of high, as well as attack, so you can hear as the filter goes up and down when you hold the notes. Also, we got velocity sensitive envelope on the filter here, so the harder you hit the chord, the more it opens. I closed it too much. Sorry. Again. So, subtle and hard. And effects are just reverb and delay. You can put anything you want here. Next one, it's more mellow pad. There is almost no, actually, yeah, almost no movement in the filter section. There is some in the amplitude section to add just a little bit of attack and release to the sound. So it goes off completely after a while. There is a oscillator here with 1 octave higher than the initial saw wave, but the core here is that it's really mellow in case of, you know, not moving filter, and also there's a lot of reverb with enhancer to move it back in the mix. So when you need a pad that it's not really, you know, pronounced, when you have busy mix, it's really something you could try. Just a simple pad with a lot of reverb. Here we have something interesting or new. This is a sound that use a lot of noise from the noise generator. And first thing is we got a delay and the plate reverb really high here, as you can hear, and also the delay is in a ping pong mode, so you can hear the noise bumping from left to right. Okay, and the core of that sound is square wave, but it's there's a pulse width modulation on it, controlled by the LFO1, and that's, yep, and it's kind of medium sweep, but the spread, the phase spread between LFOs on each voice is set to whatever. Actually, you can experiment with it. It's pretty high here, but you can try different settings. This way, each LFO moves separately. We don't want to create kind of tremolo effect. It's more like slight movement. I will show you how that pad sounds without the pulse width modulation at all. And with pulse modulation. So it's really important here. And another important thing, as I mentioned before, is the noise, which is quite high here. Without the noise, and with the noise, so you can experiment and try the settings you like best. So what new on this patch? It's kinda old school reverse envelope, filter envelope patch. And what it means, you can put filter envelope in normal mode on invert mode. In invert mode, instead of amplifying or increasing the frequency cutoff point of the filter, it's initially lower that frequency point, and then over time it moves back to the initial point of cut. And what it means, when you release the note, of course, if you have some release on the VCF, we have some pretty high actually, you can hear that the filter comes back to the initial point, which is higher. Right? Also, what we did here is I put the curve of the sustain of the filter envelope a little bit higher. What it does, it makes the, after the initial attack and the release, you can hear as the filter gradually goes off. Right? And I think that's it. Basic. Oh, there's a chorus here. Does it really matter here? Let's turn that off. Yeah. It's audible. So. And some noise. Just a little. Both oscillators, both shapes, and sub-oscillator 1 octave below the first one. Next one, but with bright resonance. Okay, the basic difference here is that the VCA is in the slow. Oh, sorry, there's a curve. So it's really short attack. So it's initially loud and decays over time a little. But the most important thing is that the filter is also short attack and the resonance is quite high. What it does here is add some resonating filter sound that when you release the notes decays slowly over time and lets you hear all the harmonics when it passes. Just listen. That's basically it. Bright resonance. Basic strings. It's just a saw wave. There is no sub-oscillator here. Two-pole filter, as we did not do any crazy things with the filter sweep. Actually, there is envelope set to 0, so the filter is constant. And for me, it's like just above the middle. But what we have here is slight detune as we are in the Unison 2 mode, and we got a vibrato effect. which is added by the LFO2, I believe. Here, yep. Pitch mode source is set to LFO2. So here, when you add the pitch mode, or here is actually, no, because the pitch mode source set here actually modulates both first and the second oscillator, and actually on this patch we got no second oscillator, so it's just a slight pitch movement on the first oscillator with no delay. There's a boost on high pass filter, but you can turn that off or on. And the plate reverb with delay. In insert mode, actually I don't know why. It can be in the send mode as well. Oh, here you can hear clearly the phase cancellation effect that I mentioned in the first video. What happens when you don't put effects in the maximum mix? That's the insert mode. That's a send mode. So if we are in send mode, which actually should be set here, we should be maximum mix here and here. Or if the reverb, if you don't want to use reverb, like you want to be less pronounced, delay, that's the reverb, less pronounced, you can put the mix lower, and then put the overall level of the effects chain to taste. And now, if it's too loud, you can use the VCA to go a little bit lower. That's it. Another example, dark brass. Of course, as always, there's an EQ as well, and multiband distortion. I don't really think that's it really important here. Let's check it out. Bypass. Yeah, it's mostly reverb. And basic difference here is that the VCA is almost no attack, so you have much more initial sound. There is pulse width modulation controlled by LFO2, just a little bit of movement here without the pulse width modulation. And width. Just a little subtle effect. It's Unison 2 mode with a slight detune and slight pan spread. That's basically it. Second oscillator is also present, and it's set, sorry, 8 cents below the initial one to add more chorus-like sound or detuned sound. And the last one, let's call it glass pad. First thing is, I've put that 2 octaves higher than usual, and then it sounds like this. There's a lot of reverb in the chorus, and I've put that in the insert mode because I want the chorus sound to be fully wet, so it's only chorus sound, no dry signal of the oscillator. That's why it sounds like, let's say, glass pad. I've put some boost to the low range as we play really high notes to add a little bit of body to the signal. There's a slight sweep on the filter. I call it slight because the envelope amount is just a saddle. And there's quite a lot of resonance here. And the filter is like half open. There's also a sub oscillator, and it's set 1 octave below. You can try 1 octave above as well, if you want to go even more glassy. Yep, that's it. Let's go to the next category.